The Next Chapter with Prim Siripipat is a production of iHeartRadio. Hey everybody, it's Prim. Welcome to The Next Chapter presented by Baron Davis and Six Studios. Well, with the 2022 US Open getting underway over in Flushing Meadows, I thought, what better time to bring on not just a tennis guest, but the person who's coaching and leading Serena Williams through what many believe will be her final US Open. As many of you probably read in her thoughtfully composed essay in Vogue, the 23-time Grand Slam singles champion shared that she is, or what she calls, evolving from tennis to focus on her family and herself. Now, Eric Hechtman, who has coached Serena's older sister Venus for a number of years now, was hired by Serena over the summer to coach her this year. And that's who I'm speaking with today. Now, Eric himself was a phenomenal athlete and phenomenal tennis player back in his day, and he still is. Although he didn't necessarily make his mark on the professional circuit, he played at University of Miami, where he was a two-time ACC champion and two-time Big East champion and three-time team captain. In fact, he still holds the school record for most all-time wins. And he's also served as a hitting partner for some of the best in the world. Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, as well as Venus and Serena Williams, obviously. Now, in full transparency, I've known E-Money, as I like to call him, for a number of years now. He actually hired me to join his coaching staff back in the day when I was in Miami, in between my television jobs. And that's where I was right before I got picked up by ESPN in 2011. A lot of people don't know that I was actually coaching tennis right before I joined the worldwide leader in sports. So in this upcoming conversation with Eric, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about his transition from tennis and what it was like to retire from the game and not too long after return to it. But as a coach, realizing that's where his passion lied, in developing young players. And in addition to learning more about his personal journey, I was also curious what it's like to be coaching two of the greatest tennis players of all time, these two trailblazers in Serena and Venus, and this essentially being the peak or highlight of his coaching career, where both his students are not only older than him, but he has been tasked with the job of coaching and guiding them as they exit the game of tennis and towards retirement. You know, because if you think about it, most coaches are hired with a goal of trying to help their students get on the up and up and achieving peak performance. But in this case, Eric has been hired to help both Serena and Venus navigate the final chapter of their careers as it comes to a close. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation. And for all my listeners out there who are coaches or are interested in coaching, I think this conversation is for you and you're going to learn a lot from it. So without further ado, here's Eric Hechtman. E-Money, how are you doing? We're very professional here on The Next Chapter.
Good. I'm doing well. How are you doing? I don't think I've spoken to you on the phone since, for a long time, since you became a mother.
Yeah, since I became a mother. That's right. And I think the last time you and I really chatted was during the pandemic. And I think you guys were headed to World Team Tennis. And I was pinging you because I was like, dude, is this cool? Like, are we going to be safe? And I think you were in a camper with Venus at that time. Were you not?
Yeah. I mean, that we should have recorded. We took an RV basically from Florida to West Virginia, then to DC, then to Kentucky, and then to New York City. So
how long were you guys in that camper for, or that RV?
I think it was 3 months. Yeah. It was, we got to really bond on that trip. So,
and then you were also playing coach. And I think the thing that people in the tennis world understand, but people maybe that are kind of on the periphery of the tennis world. It's such an intimate relationship between student and coach because it's just, I don't know. I think it's so different from other sports where it's just you two and you travel all over the world, which means you're on trips anywhere from 5 hours at a time to 10 hours at a time. You do everything together. You eat dinner together. So while you're on that RV, you're probably you kind of exist probably as a coach, maybe sometimes as a mentor, a friend, an advisor, a peer, maybe the janitor cleaning the RV at times. I remember you mentioning.
Probably all of it, honestly, with Serena, it's a little different because she's got such a big team. So, it's more, you're just the coach. I mean, you're a friend and everything like that. But Venus's team obviously is much, much smaller. And on that trip, different. You can't go anywhere. So.
Well, you made the transition easy too, because I mean, first of all, congratulations. I sent you a text. I mean, congrats on your success. I mean, now you're coaching both Serena and Venus. I know you've been in the game for so long and I know you've been coaching for a really long time, but does it not kind of hit you at certain moments? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm coaching these two legends right now. Do you have those moments?
I mean, for sure, but honestly, not that often because you're just so busy. So, and there's always something happening, and that you don't have that much downtime. At least right now. I'm sure after this tournament, it'll be it'll feel a little different. But right now, it's just trying to get them ready each day, both of them.
Yeah. So I want to focus a little bit on your transition from tennis, but I also want to spit it into your coaching career because it's almost like I think when you're a coach, in some ways, you don't really step away from the game. So it's this interesting dynamic. I feel like coaches who remain in the game, some of them have been able to process their retirement. Others haven't really said goodbye and they just kind of, in a fluid manner, just kind of transition into the coaching phase. But just generally speaking, what was your process like of retiring and then getting into the coaching space?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the second I stopped playing, I thought I was going to be completely done with tennis. So I'd say for a year, at least a year, didn't touch a racket, didn't go near a court. I didn't follow results, and I went to law school. So, and then when I was there, if you remember back, few players at Ransom started coaching them, and they had reached out to me, and I missed it. I missed tennis. I missed being outside. I missed the competitiveness. So started getting back into it. One thing led to another. And, then I was at Royal Palm and kind of snowballed. Quit law school, went straight into directing Royal Palm and one thing led to another,
So what were your plans were heading into law school? What kind of law were you interested in getting into?
I wasn't really interested in any law, to be honest. So it was just kind of like, okay, this is your next progression. I mean, I did study political science and accounting, right? So I'm more of a math person than I definitely am of a writer or a reader, right? I don't mind reading, but not for hours. So, so when I was in law school, I would say I definitely didn't like it. And it was good that I went to know I didn't want to do it. So how far were you in to law school? A few months, a year? I finished a year, and then the summer basically came, and a lot of places summer's slow for tennis, but in Miami, if you're coaching competitive players, which I had started in the spring, it's busy, right? You got Kalamazoo, you got clay courts, you got a bunch of ITS going on. So kind of developed from there. And then kind of once the fall hit, that's when I had to make that choice. And I was like, I really don't want to go back.
Mm-hmm. Now you spent some time, albeit not a long time, just trying to give the professional circuit a go. And you spent maybe 6 months or so?
Roughly 6, yeah.
Okay. 6. And what are your memories
Yeah, I mean,
of that period?
Look, obviously, if I can go back, I wish I would, right? Because I didn't have, the most coaching as a player growing up, and I probably learned a lot actually once I started coaching myself. So when I played, it was almost more of I had never really traveled outside of the United States all through my juniors and whatnot. So I went to Europe. I played a couple tournaments in Australia, Hawaii, came back, and the plan was always to start law school in January. So kind of went like that. I mean, I did all right, but I didn't give myself a real shot. I didn't treat it like a lot of the pros that I know and see, etc. So, yeah.
Did you know at that time when you left your kind of like professional circuit attempt and heading into law school, did you have any inkling that you knew you hadn't given yourself a fair shot?
Yes and no. I mean, to be honest, a lot of the people around me were saying, oh, it's so hard to make it. Basically making it almost like it's an impossible feat to become a pro, right? Which I think it happens to a lot of players in their environment, right? They have their educated parents, they have their, coaches around them, and they tell them how low of a percentage it is, which, yeah, those probably are the facts, and that's the truth, but at the end of the day, if you're taught not to believe, you're not going to believe. And so that's probably one thing that I learned as a coach not to do. If I really don't think a player has a chance at all, which, you do need some talent, right? And you need some other factors. So if there's a zero percenter, which there's some of them, but if there's a chance and that's their passion, you got to be all in, right? And go after it. So yeah, that was kind of my process. And I learned as I started coaching, hey, if I would have done this or that, who would have known, how it could have
gone. So that's such an interesting perspective. And I hear you on that. And so in the sense of, because you're a math guy, and also when you're looking at just the percentages, even if there is a 1% shot, you've got to be all in. So if there's even a chance, you are going to, from a coaching perspective, learning from your own personal journey, you now are telling your students, like, if there's a chance, and if you believe there's a chance, even if it's a small one, you have to be all in, not just like 1 foot in.
Right, exactly. And the hard part is, right, you might say it, but each player has their team, and like Venus's team isn't just me, right? She still has her mom, she still has her dad, she still has her sisters. So if your team, part of your team doesn't believe, right? Let's say you got, I don't know, so let's say somebody has 6 people on their team and 3 people believe, that means you only have 50% belief. Let's say if you took it in school terms, that's an F, right? You're going to fail. You need everybody around you to believe that there's a chance for the individual to believe, or you got to be smart enough and strong-willed enough to block out your immediate environment. You got to really be an individual in the sport, and it's truly an individual sport already as it is, right? So, I'd say there's a lot of players where it's, they're in that environment. It's not a bad environment, but it's not an environment to make it, basically.
Is that to imply that if you have a team of people, you actually know the people that don't really believe in you? Does that actually really, I mean, of course it makes sense that it would happen because it happens in companies all the time, but does that happen in tennis?
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes it's overt where somebody's telling you, like, oh, well, you're doing good, but the reality is, you probably should go to school, you should do this, you should do that, whatever it might be. And then you have the ones that are, let's say, blunt about it, right? So, I think it's, I think that's the majority of not just tennis, but a lot of sports, right?
So here you are, walking away from your experience, and you're now taking the things that you learned and what you didn't do during your personal journey, during your playing days, and now you're applying it to your coaching philosophy and the importance of belief and just being all in. So when were you all in terms of your coaching career? Because I think for tennis players, it's so easy to just kind of, you know what, I always have this to fall back on. But there's a difference between using it as a backup plan and then really making a career out of it. So when was that? When did that moment come?
I'd say, honestly, the second I gave up on law school, I said, you know what, this is what I'm doing. And I was all in. I think you remember some of it. I'd be out there 6 a.m. I'd be there till 9 p.m. on the court, go to the tournaments, with the juniors. And my goal was always I wanted to develop those kids from young age and see how far I can push them and how good I can get them. And each student I had along the way, I think helped me grow as a coach, right? Whether it's a 6-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, a guy, a girl, you got different personalities, different skill set, natural skill sets. I'm talking about different mindsets. And the more experience you have dealing with those people, the better you're going to be as a coach. And for me, granted, maybe I don't have as much experience in terms of years as maybe a coach that's, 50 something years old. But let's say over the last 13 years, the amount of hours that I put into the court, from being on the court and off the court, whether it's on the phone or at a tournament, et cetera, would put me at least in my 50s, I'd say. So, I'd say I was definitely all in, right? All the time, and my wife would even say, like, you got to stop thinking about it. You got to disconnect. But I think part of being all in is it's just part of you. There's no disconnect because you don't want to. So you are definitely all in. And from the years that you and I were working together, I mean, you'd show up bright and early before the rest of us got there on the humid, hot courts at Royal Palm, and then by the time I left, you were still out there. And like, it's not like you were just lobbing balls. Like, you were grinding out there in 100-degree weather with a lot of your players. So what do you think is the difference between coaches that happen to fall into it rather than really choosing, I want to coach? If that makes sense, because there are some players as they transition out of sport, it's just, it's just kind of an easy thing. Then you're like, you know what, I this is what I want to do, but they don't really like choose to pursue it and become a really good coach. So what do you think is the difference? I read an article the other day about people that have jobs, right? And some people, they hate their job. They've been demoralized, let's say, by management and leadership, and they just end up just showing up to work, right? And they keep showing up as it's their paycheck. And maybe it's tough for them to match that paycheck and get a different job. So to kind of translate that over, I do think there's maybe a lot of tennis players, maybe they don't have the education and, they feel like there's nothing else that they can really do. They can earn them the money that coaching tennis could, because tennis is a unique sport in the sense that, maybe if you're 200 in the world, you can't make a great living, but you could probably be the 200th best coach in Miami, right? And make a decent living. You could show up, you could show a good face, maybe not give the best effort and punch out a few lessons, right? And come home with a better living than you would doing another job and having to work more hours. So I think that example, and it's not all of them, but definitely some players that end up becoming coaches, they're kind of stuck in that equilibrium where that's why, like you've got an incredible skill set where you can do multiple different things. So you can pick what you want to do, right? And what you're passionate about doing. Unfortunately, not everybody has prepared themselves to be in that situation. And I think that's what happens to a lot of players.
And got it. And because you have prepared yourself, even if tennis was a huge part of your junior career and growing up and also at University of Miami, but you had given yourself all those other options and you had gone to law school and probably explored a little bit. And so it became a choice rather than out of necessity in many ways, because you were choosing to do that.
Right. So in my situation right now, it's a choice. And if I get to the point where I'm just showing up It's a job. And I'm like, man, like I really don't want to be here today. I don't want to be on the court. I won't be in tennis anymore. I'm going to go do something else. Right. So, I tell myself that, and, that I'm not saying that that day might come, right? You never know, right? Because I'd say people sometimes don't change, but they do change, right? So it could happen, but just as long as it's definitely not happening anytime soon. So I'd say that.
So when you were starting to coach, you started out in juniors, as everybody does, but did you have an idea of whether or not you wanted to work with juniors and eventually work your way up and working with the pros? Because you were exposed to it, at least, from at least a player and also training perspective. You've served as a hitting partner for some of the best, including the Williams sisters many, many years ago, but also Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer. Did you also hit with Andy Murray too at some points?
Time and time again, he would stop in and play at UN mostly with Danny, but but yeah, sometimes.
So what was the goal? Did you eventually want to work with pros and travel the circuit, or did you have your eye on working with juniors really?
It's hard to, there are some things that are really enjoyable about being at the pro level. Obviously the level of play, the excitement of the crowd, stadiums, etc. But as far as just like the pure joy of coaching juniors is the best, just because, they're learning and they're changing, and you're changing everything from technique to mindset to physicality, to essentially you could change their whole life, right? Whether they're in tennis or not, like I have students when I come back in town that they don't play tennis anymore, but they still want to test tennis lesson almost just to talk, right? So, there's that aspect to it that I truly, really enjoy about the junior side of things.
I could really understand that. It's almost as if at the pro level, you're kind of, in some ways, you're doing a lot of fine tuning, but sometimes a lot of it is just being a manager and maintenance. There's not as you don't have as much of an impact in terms of just not only athletically and strategically and technically, but also on a foundational and personal perspective, right? Because at the junior level, you can really shape somebody.
The juniors for sure more, and I'd say it depends on the pros, and talk to other coaches and seen other players, right? So if I were to coach another pro, I'd really take my time and think about it before committing to a player, because you got to be able to connect to them. You got to know that you can get through. And like I said, that if I did take on a pro that's, they're that good and I don't think I can connect with them, I'm going to lose my job enjoyment and probably won't be in tennis after that, So that's the tricky part, I'd say, in the pro game. If you're coaching a junior and you don't connect, you can say, you know what, it's not working out, and it's no big deal. Coaching a pro could be on the other side of the world in Australia. It's a different dynamic there, for sure.
It is. It's also really hard, the traveling aspect of it. I think a lot of pros, but also the coaches also talk about that, and especially ones that have a family. You've got 3 little ones and married. Absolutely. And so, you're on the road, I don't know, 10 months out of the year, probably 8 to 9 months at least.
Depends on the pro. I'd say that's the good thing with these girls is we're definitely not on the road that much. I'd say definitely never even 6. That so far that I've been with them, but other ones, I'd say, yeah, it's 10, and a lot of times it's straight. There's no break, Go from Australia to the Middle East to California, I live in Miami, so then you get a little break, but then Europe's straight if you're playing all the events, which most of them do. Can't blame them. That's the job, right? So.
Mm-hmm. So the last time you and I were really on the court together was 2011 at Royal Palm.
A long time
ago. And one of my memories is that when I was working with Julie Stephen at the time, who was over at Ransom, and she's a big name and down in Miami too. And you and I were talking, and I came to try out, and you interviewed me, but you also had me do What, I forget the name of that drill, but you had me play with your players. It was some game. What's it called? You know what I'm talking about.
They call it fun game. Yeah. It's with you have the quick hands, the net.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just a ton of running. And at that point, I don't think you knew. I hadn't told anybody what I was doing, or maybe some people knew, but I was a sports reporter and anchor at CBS at the time, and then I got laid off. So I was like in between jobs and coaching. So at that point in my life, I had really not played a ton. I mean, I was coaching, with Julie and all that. But then it was also a club where you had to wear all white. So then I had to go in. You made me go into the tennis shop, and then I had to wear this oversized skirt, which, I was just like, I look like an idiot right now, and then he's going to make me do this drill.
Yeah,
but fortunately,
you, huh? I didn't realize.
I was like, oh my God. But I got the job, so that was fun. But you had it was such a, and I'm not just saying this, it was such a fun experience working with your crew. And you had a really good group of students. I mean, you had, I would say, about 30 to 35, but you had 5 ranked in the top 20 in the country.
Yeah.
So
that was a great group. That was probably that time period was definitely I'd say it was the most fun I've had coaching, for sure.
It was so much fun. It was just a good group of kids, good coaching staff. We had fun. People worked hard. People listened. Just an amazing time. And so that was my last experience of being in the court as a coach. And so you were a huge part of that. But I don't really know, like, how did it go from there and then to Venus and then to Serena? I know that's like whittling 10 years or 8 years roughly and breaking it down. But how did you get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say with Venus, even from then, I was going up there and I'd hit with her, in West Palm and Palm Beach Gardens, and now she's in Jupiter. But year after year, it'd be the off season, and I still remember I'd drive up, practice at 9 a.m. or 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., whichever one it is, play, and I'd come back down and I'd bust out like 6 hours with those boys, right? So I was, cranking. But yeah, in 2019, she calls me, and I guess she was moving on from her coaching staff, and she was like, "Hey, you want to go to Indian Wells with me?" And so, I'm slammed, and I just had my first kid, and I'm like, should I do this, right? Should I, with my wife and my son? I'm like, this is my next step, though. Yeah, gotta go. So didn't know what it was going to turn into. If it was going to be 1 tournament, 2 tournaments, more.
Yeah.
Ended up going to Indian Wells, did Miami. It was, and obviously I thought I had a good experience, and she had a good experience, and kind of went from there. I didn't end up going to Europe that year, but did the whole U.S. swing, and there it is, right? So still there.
What do you think it is, or it was and continues to be, with that relationship that works? Personality, chemistry.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of different things. I mean, like Venus, like me, is a little bit of like super into like all the aspects of tennis, from the technicals to the physicals to anything you can grasp to improve or change, etc. And then personality too. I mean, I'm pretty straightforward, and I think she appreciates that. And I'm not on her all the time about whatever it might be, right? So, it's just it's a good personal connection between me and her. We get along great, and yeah, I mean, I'd say whenever she leaves the game, I'd say we're still going to have a great connection after as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think the thing that is great about your vibe, and I think it would work for people. I think it would work for most players, unless it's a player that really needs that kind of in your face, loud, verbal kind of being
Not
super
me.
driven. But yeah, that's not you. Like you work well with people that need that sense of peace and calm. Like you're not going to get too high and not too low. And I think that's why it was easy. It was really easy, at least as a, fellow coach, to work with you, because you just keep it straightforward and keep it chill. Like there's really no drama with that. So I would imagine, especially at that stage, in their careers with Venus and Serena, they need somebody who's going to keep it really chill, keep it really straightforward, and keep it easy in many ways. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, your headspace, in my opinion, your headspace, there's just so much going on. There's no reason to make the headspace harder than it needs to be, right? So, the in your face type of coach, it's a short term way of coaching, right? Like it's almost like injecting yourself with adrenaline, right? Like, you might get hyped up for a couple hours, which, in coaching terms, that could be a 3 month, 6 months, maybe a little longer. But once it hits that wall, once the adrenaline wears off, it's a straight crash. And that's why you see sometimes a couple players will have a great year, 2 great years, maybe a couple great months, and then all of a sudden, poof, they're gone. They don't exist in the game. And I know their dad well and their mom well. And, they have their moments where they're intense, just like me, but overall it's calm voice, right? Like you got to want to be there. And if you don't want to be there, then don't be there. It's nobody's forcing that at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about your journey, and I'm curious to hear in your own words how you're processing it. But to the outsider, it might seem like, holy cow, this might be the peak or the pinnacle of your coaching career, to be alongside these 2 legends in the game, arguably the best players on both sides, men and women, or one of the best, no question. But then you're coaching them as they are on their way out and leaving the game. So I'm curious about how you're processing all of that, your own coaching and personal journey, and where they are in their stage of their careers.
Yeah, I mean, look, you walk into the practice, you walk into a match, and it's just, the atmosphere is crazy right now, and that's the cool part. But if I step into a practice, I'm not treating it like, oh my gosh, we got one more practice and there's 14 days left and this could be blah, blah, blah. I don't process it like that, and, never have. So I don't never act in a panic or in that fashion. And, what's going through their minds as it comes to a close, who knows? But at the end of the day, what I do tell them both is they've accomplished so much and so many great things that they don't have to accomplish anything more. So if they go out there and, they give it their all, they prepare the best that they can, and they enjoy it, I'm sure it's going to go well, right? It's different when you're 18 years old, you're 19 years old, you're coming in with all these expectations and playing with that sort of pressure. I feel like that's harder than this would be, but it's all about perspective, right? If they're looking at it like, oh my God, this is my last match in New York. It could be, I'm not going to get another shot at this. Yeah, I mean, that pressure mounts up. But if you look at it as, I've had so many unbelievable matches here, I'm going to enjoy this because I don't even need another one, but I want to play another one, right? So I think it's, again, that's why I say it's all about perspective that you take, So they're still here because they want to be here. And, I know Serena announced what she did, but I like how she put it out there that that she's not calling it retirement, right? Because at the end of the day, you've seen so many different athletes come back, from Brady to Jordan, and you never know, right? Most likely it's the closing of a door, at that age, and tennis is such an individual sport where you can't manage your minutes or manage how many games you play, etc. But there's no door that's closed, I'd say, with somebody who loves the game and is passionate about it and has accomplished the things that both of them have.
So it's kind of the frame or the perspective of the glass half full rather than the glass half empty. And I'm curious if you draw in from your experience when you were playing in the pros and recognizing if there's a chance, if there's any chance, just leaving open to the possibility that anything can really happen. And I'm trying to kind of draw the connections between the two, because that seems to be the theme when you talk about maybe when you were in the circuit and also now when you're coaching the sisters, is that you're just leaving the open to the possibility that anything can and could happen.
Sports, right? I mean, that's why that stadium's full. Anything can happen at any moment, at any time. Somebody get hurt on the first point, it's over. You know, you could have the most unexpected winner. You just saw Borna Koric win Cincinnati, you know? So you never know. It's sports. All you can do is prepare for it. And if you go out there with that, and again, perspective, which I didn't have when I played, the possibilities are endless. So it's about just channeling your mind in that right frame.
Mm-hmm. And not letting other people dictate the narrative and allowing the possibility and having the freedom for the narrative to be kind of created in its own way, however it's going to be shaped. And I think that's what I loved. I don't know if she intended it to be this way, but the fact that Serena wrote in her own words. I've kind of mentioned to other people, they've asked me about my thoughts about her essay. And I thought it was so smart because in a day, in an age, especially with social media, where everybody has an opinion about everybody these days, especially for somebody like Serena. But I think writing in her own words gave her more control over her story and her narrative and how she's viewing this stage in her life. And I just thought that was really cool, whether or not she intended it to be that way. So I'm curious about what you think.
I do think she intended it to be that way, you know, and I agree with you. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it. And today's day and age, it's harder than I think it ever has been with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. I mean, you know, you lose one point, right? And you got millions of people talking about how it's over and this and that. And then you win the next point and, you know, the narrative changes. But she wrote her own narrative. So, you know, I'd say from the outsiders, it's great. But then there's also the players who have never even said one word, right? And I appreciate that as well, just because it's, hey, I know what I believe. I believe in myself, and I don't need to tell you anything, right? So I kind of like both, honestly, you know, and like we've talked about from the beginning, every athlete is different, every personality is different, and that essay is Serena, right? So I think it's great.
So how does your coaching philosophy and approach change when you're just working with juniors and you know that you're probably playing a more a bigger role in shaping who they are technically, strategically, player wise, physically, and then when you're dealing with two veterans who have you know, who are also older than you, you know,
Sure.
and it's just a different mindset. So how does your philosophy and approach change?
It definitely changes, you know, so you got to know the age, you got to know the personality, you got to know how you're going to get through and connect into their mind and how you can help, right? Because just saying whatever could come to your mind about a forehand or a backhand or their movement from any level isn't necessarily effective, because you can only process so much information in such a short period of time. And it's not like school where you can kind of write something down and read it and think about it and memorize it. It's a sport. It's happening fast in split seconds, right? So you've got to be calculated in what you say, and you got to make sure that whatever you say resonates and makes a positive difference. Because if you say something that resonates and makes a positive difference, and then you say something that doesn't matter, and then you say something that could be detrimental, you don't know what that player is going to pick up out of the three, right? So a coach has to think quick and kind of know the room before they walk into the room of what they're going to say, how they're going to say it, and when they're going to say it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what is your role as, you know, you just joined and started working with Serena, even though you've known her for many years, but you know, she hired you as part of your team over the summer. So how do you envision your role, or what has she communicated to you about what she would like from you and expects from you as her coach?
Yeah. I'm doing my best to structure practices. She's a very structured person, right? Similar to me like that. She's very competitive. She brings an incredible amount of intensity to the court every single day, more than any player or athlete I've ever been around. A guy, girl, doesn't matter, right? Her intensity is incredible. So my approach to her is more, I'm trying to calm her, trying to keep her healthy, right? And trying to maximize her strengths while minimizing her weaknesses, right? So that's kind of my role right there. And in today's game, there's so much technology to help her build strategy before each opponent she plays and prepare her the best that I can without overdoing the information at the same time, right? So with her, that's kind of how it is. A more low-key player, I might be trying to poke and prod them to, wake up the tiger inside of them, essentially, but not her.
Yeah, I would imagine not either one of them. You don't need to poke the tiger in either one of them.
No, they got it. They got
it. If anything, you probably need to harness it a little bit and really recognize, like, okay, this is when you can use it. This is when you want to stir the tiger. This is when you want to settle it down a little bit and play smart.
Absolutely. So that's what I've been trying to do, and we'll see. Hopefully New York treats us well, and it's been going well so far, and we got less than a week left before the stage curtain opens, right? So see.
Yeah, I mean, I was milling around on social media, and I saw there was a clip of her and her entire team, and you were there. I mean, it's just the U.S. Open has always been, for those who haven't been there, but it's I would say it's one of the most electric tournaments during the year. I think just because of the nature of being in and around New York City, it's loud. There's always music playing. There's just a certain energy,
it's
right?
It's absolutely the most electric tournament, from an energy perspective, right? So I like it. It's not my persona, but I definitely like it for the couple weeks that I'm here. Wouldn't like that all the time.
How big is her team? Like, how many people does she have on her team?
Deep. And she has other people that aren't on the tennis court too. So, but
right.
At the same time, you got to understand that and respect it, just because as you get stronger and better in whatever sport you're doing, to increase your longevity, it's investing into yourself and trying to make your life easier, and that's clearly what she does. Venus, on the other hand, has a very small team, but Venus likes her space. She likes her intimacy with just a few people, and like I said, they are very different. They're definitely not the same. So they're doing what works best for themselves, and that's tennis. So.
Yeah, I interviewed Andy Roddick a few years ago, and he retired at the U.S. Open at 30 years old. I think that was around 2012, and so we've often talked about that moment. His situation is definitely a little different, very unlike most other athletes, where he literally woke up one morning and was like, "That's it, I'm done. I can't handle it," and he rode off into the sunset, and he felt a weight off his shoulders. I think his situation, again, is really unique. But what do you think is really important? I guess the question might be twofold. What do you think is important for Serena and Venus, or maybe Serena, assuming this might be her, it's probably her last U.S. Open. But what do you think is important for her and or other players that are playing in their final tournament?
Man, that's a good question. But I think at the end of the day, right, they're performers, right? They put on a good performance, right? I think that's probably, at the forefront of what's probably most important for them. Obviously you want to win every match and win the tournament, but going out there and having a strong performance, playing well, bringing the energy, etc. I think that's got to be number one, right? Because that's your last moment, right? As a professional athlete. So if I had to pick, I'd say that. But again, everyone's different. It could be a different meaning to each person, right? So,
do you remember your last moment or match or tournament?
I do. I remember. Well, the tricky thing was, like, I still played tournaments as I was coaching, right? So I remember my last tournament before I went to law school, but I would say that wasn't really my last tournament. I've played probably over 100 tournaments since I started coaching. So
that is interesting to think, because it's almost as if you didn't really, you obviously said goodbye to the game as a collegiate player, but you're still playing in some capacity and you're still involved with it. It's almost as if for players at the professional level who are playing at Grand Slams like Serena and Venus, it almost feels a little bit more finite, where the cliff that they walk off of is so much bigger than college players like you and I, because we can just like float in and out of the scene, where for them it's like, once you're not there at the US Open, that is it. Even if they continue playing exhibition masters, to everybody else it's just like, oh, you're really done. So I never really thought about it from that perspective.
Yeah. No, I mean, once you get to the pinnacle of any sport, whether it's tennis or NBA, like Jordan going out in the NBA finals, it's just different. You're at the pinnacle. It's not like you're going to go out there and play a men's open or, some like lower level pro tournament where you can compete. You walk out of the US Open, you're not going to go play one of those. That's it. You're not competing. It's an all or nothing type of thing. There's no gray area involved there. So yeah, I mean, I'd say I haven't been in that situation, but I can only imagine it's definitely much, much tougher, no doubt.
How do you process goodbyes? I know this is, I'm going to bring it around, but just on a general and personal level, how do you process goodbyes or endings?
Just depends on the nature of the goodbye, right? So, in sport, right, you're performing, but to one extent, at a personal level, there might not be a goodbye, right? Like, so for me with the girls, maybe there's not a goodbye, but for those fans out there, there is a goodbye. So it's just different in its perspective. So when they walk out there, they've got to have that perspective that, hey, these fans are part of me and part of who I am and part of who I am as a professional. And, this is my goodbye to them. They're still going to know me. They're still going to follow me and, right, be a part of my life, but definitely in a different fashion. It's almost like breaking up with a girlfriend. It's like those fans are still going to appreciate those players, just like, Jordan was one of my favorite athletes as a player, but then you move on, like a Dwayne Wade or whoever else might be the next current thing out there. So they're going to like somebody else, whether it's Coco Gauff or whoever else might be the next big up and comer and athletic and powerful, et cetera, and everything that they brought to the game. So that's the tough part, knowing that the fans who are such a big part of your life, you're moving on from them, and they're probably also going to be moving on from you at some point too. So,
yeah, that's such an insightful perspective, and one that has been described differently from other athletes, in the way that when other athletes, particularly in football and basketball, they've talked about their relationship with fans and fame and being a public figure as a more, in some ways, negative experience, because I think there's also a lot of criticism. And so I don't know if the relationship with fans in tennis, I feel it's much more intimate. There's a different dynamic, but nonetheless, I mean, listen, the Williams sisters have already have experienced their fair share of obstacles. Clearly,
Oh, right. Yeah, like there's negatives and positives, and it's come full circle. And they've been at tournaments where people have booed them, maybe undeservingly. They've handled themselves properly, and I definitely think there's not going to be one person that's not going to be fully in their corner supporting them, right? So, at the end of the day, it's all perspective, how you see the fans, how you interact. You take a negative approach, it's going to get worse. It's exponential. Take a positive approach, right? It's going to go that way as well. So, the fans are going to be in their corner, but the biggest part for an athlete, I think, is being relevant too, right? It's not just playing the sport, right? It's the relevancy. Jordan, I guess, is one athlete that's always relevant, but it's not like he's as relevant as he used to be when he was playing, right? And that's just par for the course. LeBron's super relevant right now. When he decides to retire, is everyone, let's say 5 years after his retirement, is everyone going to continue to talk about LeBron? I don't know. And the same thing's going to be true for Serena, Venus, etc. But you only have a certain amount of time on this earth, and to be fair, to have the length of the career that they had, the relevancy and time, it's awesome. So you can't ask for much more than what they did, and they deserve it, right? They earned that. They earned all of that time that they have.
Yeah. Do you share that perspective about really seeing the opportunity and having that half glass full, in the sense of, because when you were talking about how you say goodbye, I think the thing that I took away from it is that saying goodbye doesn't necessarily have to be this binary experience where it's like you just completely shut the door and that's it. And maybe that's why Serena described her experience in terms of retirement, saying she's going to evolve from tennis, and that she's not necessarily saying goodbye to tennis. She's just saying goodbye to some parts of it, and you can still maintain that relationship. As you mentioned, like you're not saying goodbye to Serena and Venus altogether. You're saying goodbye to them eventually as tennis players, but as friends, as peers, as lifelong friends. I mean, you're not saying goodbye to that part. And so that's something that I had never really thought of. So you're saying just goodbye to some parts, but not all of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then people who don't know them, right? It's tougher for them because that is their goodbye, They feel like they have that intimate relationship with them because they're playing, right? And they're just experiencing that match, right? As a coach and friend, etc. You're experiencing a day-by-day thing, them at dinner, them in the morning, right? Conversations with them that aren't even about tennis. So the second they lose that match or win that match or whatever might happen, those people who are close to them, they're not playing tennis anymore, but nothing else changed, right? They're still there as people. So yeah, I think retirement is hard on the athlete, but it's also hard on the fans and the athletes that I feel like truly do appreciate and love their fans. That's how retirement becomes that difficult, right? Because those people, that's their only relationship with those people. So obviously for Serena, Venus, any other athlete who's got that sort of appreciation is going to be tough. The athletes that say how much they dislike the fans and this and that, I don't think retirement's as tough for that. I think it's almost like a breath of fresh air for them to move on and not be a part of that scene anymore. So again, perspective on it, right? So
yeah, you're absolutely right. The type of relationship they have with being a public figure, with being an ambassador for the game, or their relationship with the fans undoubtedly influences how they're going to leave the game and how they feel about retirement. Yeah, that's a really good perspective. Have you thought about, or have you talked to them about and shared your experience in and around retirement, whether it's your experience or other people's experiences, and what they could take away from that? And I know your retirement was so deeply different, but nonetheless, it's it could be your role as an advisor and also a coach. But have you guys touched on that, or have you thought about it?
Not necessarily retirement, but I've touched on different things that we've talked about as far as perspective of life, etc. Because I think having that perspective and having the people around them give them other perspectives helps them find their perspective and focus on their perspective and, answer some of those questions that might keep them up at night or make them think about what's next and what's not, and put their mind at ease. And I think having those answers and having the right people around you to help you find those answers will make the retirement that much easier.
Mm-hmm. So. What do you think you wish you would have known? Or what would you tell your 22 or 23-year-old self?
Yeah, I wish I would have known more about tennis like I know it. Not as much anymore, but when I was younger, I was a really strong athlete and, basically survived off of competitiveness and athleticism, learned more about the technical side of things, how you can use equipment to help you, etc. So, and, how almost anybody could make it, right? Like if have that passion and they're all in. So I would tell myself all of those things. And I would tell myself to ignore anybody else who told me otherwise and say, okay, you might be a family, friend, or an advisor to me, but you're not in this regard of my life. And we're not going to talk about it. And just to not let them speak so much, just not let them have a voice in your head. Right. So, I definitely would have done that, but would have, should have, and could have. But at the end of the day, I take it as I learned from those mistakes. You can call them mistakes, can't blame myself for it because I didn't know better at that stage. Sure. Right. So I didn't come from an athletic background. So.
Yeah, I think, and I touch on these things with all of my guests because it's less about highlighting our regrets or mistakes, but that's how we're all going to learn. We're never going to stop making mistakes, and I think that's the gift of having a dialogue and discussion is because we can learn from each other's mistakes. And I know there's so many young athletes and also sports parents and coaches who are listening to this conversation. And so I think that's such an interesting thing to think about how one person's voice might be really significant and impactful and valuable in one area of your life. But then when it comes to another area, it may not hold as much weight or importance, I guess.
Absolutely. That's a good way to put it. And you can't, you got to be picky with who you let into your life, right? Because if you let in people who are going to sway you in a way that maybe you don't want to be swayed, it could take you down a path you don't want to go. So it's important.
Do you feel as though your coaching career do you feel you get more out of it and have reached greater heights compared to your playing days? Which I know is a lot to say because you're an awesome player at Miami and two-time ACC champ and you're just like a crazily gifted athlete. So, but your tennis career has kind of never stopped. So I'm curious how you see your coaching career and your playing careers if one trumps the other.
It's an interesting way. I definitely like playing better than anything else, right? So I would say that from an enjoyment standpoint, right? Let's say you put money aside, job, etc. I would be like them. I would play till I literally couldn't play anymore. I would want to keep going, right? But as far as accomplishing, I'm very competitive. So, I think I definitely have accomplished more in coaching, and I have a passion for it, like I do for playing. So I think that's my best way of saying it. So probably accomplishing more in coaching, enjoying more in playing for me.
Yes, that makes sense. And I ask that because only recently have I started reflecting on my own trajectory in the sense of, hopefully this makes sense. I'm going to try to distill it down, but I've looked at my life as like different chapters. So I have my tennis career, I have my broadcasting career, and now I'm kind of moving into the PhD, like mental health space. And it's something that I actually touched on with my therapist recently, where it's like I seem to gravitate or fall into the same environments. And there's a lot of similarities between my tennis personality, who I was, how I approach things in tennis and at Duke and ESPN and broadcasting, and then now what I'm doing now. And so now I'm starting to look at things as like a continuum where it's like, oh, I made these mistakes as my tennis career. And now, like several decades later, I'm actually changing them. And my championship is like, I'm putting myself in the position to reach my championship, if that makes sense. So if we're putting it in your context and journey, sense. Like your championship and the mistakes and the lessons that you learn from your playing career are actually allowing you to achieve the championship level and the peak of your life. And they're all connected. They're not different. They're not separate experiences. Does that make sense?
Of course, and you just said it very well for yourself, right? I'm sure for you probably love playing more than you even love what you're doing now, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, you do love what you're doing now, and it's the next phase, and you're competitive as an athlete as well, and you want to be the best at what you're doing. So as you keep moving through phases, right, you want to accomplish more, you want to do better, and you got that innate competitiveness inside of you, and I think that's why you see a lot of athletes not just excel on the court, but off the court. They might not like what they're doing in that next chapter as much, but they're going to excel in it because they always want to be competing, right? So I might not have an opponent in front of me, but I'm competing against other individuals in my industry, right? And I want to be the best. So, and I'm sure you do as well. So.
Always, even from that very first day that you put me through that nasty drill and made me play with the rest of your kids in that oversized tennis skirt that was very embarrassing. Kind of wrapping it up. Two parts. What do you hope for Venus and Serena, especially if this is her last U.S. Open? What is your gift to her?
Yeah, I mean, look, I hope I found her, help both of them find their perspective, happiness at the closing stages of their playing career that can help them transition into greatness, into what they're doing next. They've already started what they're doing next, right? Both of them, right? But, as a coach, I hope this helps them. We'll see in New York perform well, and give them a great performance and lead into their next chapters, just like I'm sure you've had different individuals that might have helped you move from playing, coaching, the broadcasting to the space you're in now, right? So, I feel like there's always somebody or something, right, that's that, boom, helps you get there, right? And so I'm hoping that I'm that link for them, whether I am or I'm not. I'm giving it all I got to get them there. So,
kind of being the link, the bridge, the person that's able to take them from one place to the other. And that transition, whatever it is, that is really difficult for a lot of people. This is going to be kind of a weird question, maybe, but what do you hope for yourself? And I want you to ask it in a way where it's weird to ask a coach, like, hey, what do you want for yourself? Because your job isn't to think about yourself. But this is such a momentous occasion, whether it's this tournament or over the next couple of years, whatever it is. But for yourself, who's put in all this hard work, and you think about those 15-hour days and how far you came, since the moment you started at Royal Palm, what do you think you want for yourself?
I mean, that's a short, easy answer. I want to win, So, I mean, to be honest, that's what I want, right? I want to go out there and I want to win championships, right? So that's what I want, and I'm doing everything I can to get there, and to get my horses ready to be fine-tuned and see what happens. So hopefully it happens here, but every time I step out there with an athlete or myself, right, it's I want to win that last point. So. And not winning that last point is a tough feeling for all of us, right? So.
Well, it happens to most people. There's really only one person where that can walk away winning that last point. So well, E-Money, it's been awesome just watching you grow and progress over the years and getting to this point, and you're heading into the 2022 US Open. Such a surreal experience, but man, it's been really good to watch you on your rise. But tell your family, your wife, your 3 crazy kids, I say hi.
Crazy.
It's so crazy.
You too. I mean,
we got one less though. We've got one less, and with 2, it feels like 5. So I can't imagine what 3 feels like. It must feel like the Brady Bunch, honestly.
Yeah, but look at all you're doing. School, motherhood. I mean, it's amazing. So look, that's just who we are, right? And that's what a lot of athletes are. So,
woo, for better or for worse. Yeah, that's for sure. Well, E-Money, it was awesome catching up. I wish you the best of luck. We're all going to be watching, and have a good time and good ride out there.
Thank you. Good luck to you too.
Really hope you enjoyed today's conversation. For more episodes, just visit our homepage on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. And to watch the full version of these interviews, just head on over to YouTube and you can search for The Next Chapter with Prim Siripipat. Subscribe to us, like us, give us a star rating. We really appreciate you listening and, of course, showing your support. The Next Chapter with Prim Siripipat is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.